Wellness Wednesday on Fox 54 News, sponsored by Regenesis.
March is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, a time dedicated to shedding light on a chronic disease that affects nearly 1 million people in the U.S. alone. Fox 54's Logan-Alexandra Russell sat down with a local specialist and a patient with a very personal connection to learn more about the fight against MS.
It is often called the invisible disability. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a condition where the immune system attacks the protective sheath covering nerves.
When there is MS, means there is inflammation of this myelin, there is destruction. So the impulses get slowed down and there will be weakness of the body. Flare-ups can happen anytime. You could be fine today. If you have history of MS, tomorrow you may come with a flare-up. The flare-ups involve also losing eyesight and then balance problems, numbness, tingling, weakness, can't walk, can't pee.
Though there's no cure for MS, specialists say advancements in medicine help slow down the progression. But for many, the statistics aren't just numbers on a page. They're a daily reality. For my family, that reality hits home.
And so we'll just jump right into it. Hi, Mom.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you, Funky.
You too, Mamas. So, today we're for our Wellness Wednesday segment, we're talking about MS awareness. And March is where MS Awareness Month. And then this week is MS Awareness Week. So that's why I'm doing the story here for our Wellness Wednesday segment. But let's start off with the day that you were diagnosed. If you could just say when you were diagnosed, and then I guess what was kind of going through your head at that time when you were diagnosed.
So I'll just start off by saying I was totally caught off guard by the diagnosis. One of my coworkers noticed some issues when I was presenting. Oftentimes I would either have to teach a lot of courses or speak to large audiences. And she said she noticed every time I spoke, I held onto the table and acted as if I was losing my balance. And I didn't know that at all. And so she suggested that I go to the hospital. In fact, she escorted me to the hospital that day. So I was very angry that she would, take it upon herself to escort me. But she said she was really concerned because she had seen me do it quite often, and we were scheduled to travel actually the next day. And so I did go to the hospital, and they ran some tests, some different scans, and they just assumed that it was stress related. I was in graduate school at the time, and so, just thought work and stress and a family was just a lot going on. And so they just said, maybe it's stress, maybe it's anxiety, things will calm down. But then the next day we received a call from the hospital because someone actually from the neurology department who specialized in brain disorders went ahead and reviewed the slides. So the regular neurology department, or whoever read the slides initially, did not pick up anything. I guess you have to kind of be specialized to determine that it's MS. And so they found white lesions on my brain, and it was indicative of MS. However, you have to have at least 3 out of the 4 tests to come up positive, 4 different types of tests in order to say that you have MS. And so I did all 4 tests. Sure enough, I tested positive for MS, and again, totally caught off guard. It was not on my radar. Now, I will say when I was a teenager, I started having symptoms when I was around 16 years old. I complained of electric shocks that were going through my body, and then sometimes headaches. And so my parents took me to the hospital and to the doctor repeatedly, and they, at the time, were testing me for, I can't think of the disorder right now, the blood disease. It typically is apparent in a lot of African Americans. It's not coming to me at the moment, but they assumed it was that. They tested for that, and it was not. And they ran some other tests, and they thought maybe I just wanted attention. Maybe I was a kid that wanted attention. So they just wrote it off as me wanting attention and never did anything about it. So again, I suffered through those electrical shocks. And it wasn't until, again, like married in my early 30s when I was diagnosed with MS. I did notice shortly before I was diagnosed that I was having some comprehension problems. Not to toot my own horn, but I used to be pretty smart. And so things came to me quickly, but then all of a sudden it no longer came to me quickly. And I even said to my husband, I feel like something's eating, at my brain. And he was just like, well, that's a little extreme. Um, I wouldn't say that. But again, not until I got the diagnosis and realized that there were tons of lesions on my brain already, that I had the diagnosis. And so here we are, almost 40 years later since my original symptom, that I'm battling MS. So,
And if I remember correctly, you were diagnosed shortly after I was born, correct?
correct. Yes.
Gotcha. And so, MS is, often called an invisible illness or invisible disabilities because many symptoms aren't seen by others. And sometimes, like, you are experiencing those symptoms, but people, if they don't see something physically wrong with you, they just assume that you don't have it. So, what is something you deal with on a daily that you wish people, understood a little bit better? Or what do you want people to know about people who have MS, who others may assume, oh, like there's nothing wrong with them, but you actually are struggling through that day after day?
Yeah. So one thing that makes me angry is when I'm driving somewhere and I park and I pull out my handicap tag and put my handicap tag out. People will come up to me and say, "You don't appear to be handicapped. You're walking just fine." And I say, I have MS. If need be, sometimes I even pull out my disability card. But they assume that I don't look like I am having any difficulties. My biggest problem with my MS is fatigue. And so most people who have MS struggle with fatigue. I could literally have 8 to 10 hours sleep the night before. I wake up, my husband says, "How did you sleep last night?" "Oh, I slept well." And then an hour or two later, I'm tired. And he'll say, "I thought you said you slept well." I did, but I'm never not tired. So I'm always dragging. I'm always, I could take a nap anytime, anywhere. Also, I lose my balance a lot, and that started even from early childhood. And we just would make jokes that I was clumsy and didn't know, there was a disease associated with it. Um, so people don't necessarily see those things, nor do they see the pain or sometimes my difficulty in walking. And because I present okay most times, they don't know that anything is wrong. And when I do have what's called an exacerbation, where your MS flares up and you have problems, my biggest symptom is slurred speech and kind of loss of words. And so what I try to do is just play it off and I'll just, "Oh, I'm getting older, I'm forgetting my words. And so I don't let people know that I even have the illness, because sometimes there's a stereotype. If you have an illness or disabled, then people treat you differently or look at you differently. And I don't want that, to be the case. And so, I try to hide it as much as I can.
And I mean, that must be extremely difficult to have to kind of suffer in silence in a sense. When you are truly, your body is truly, going through something and you can't even, speak up or voice it, and people just assume one thing, but it's something completely different. I can't even imagine, you
Right.
know, having to go through that. And I know that like growing up, I've seen like how strong you are. I know that there have been times where, you have an exacerbation, but I've always really looked up to you because you've always kept going and you never let it stop you. And so it has always been very inspiring to me. Um,
Hmm.
and just seeing that you were still able to be a mother, be a wife, have a family,
Right.
continue to work, is not easy, and so I've just been grateful that, you were still there for me, even when you were going through something. And so next question would be, what has been, I guess, the biggest lesson that you've learned about yourself, since you started living with MS? I mean, I can list off the many wonderful things, that I notice about you. I see your strength and your perseverance, but what's the biggest lesson that you've learned about you?
Well, I mean, I kind of see it as a blessing in disguise. The track that I was going on in terms of my career, it was really at the height of my career where, I was really starting to take off and really starting to get promotions and other opportunities. But it forced me at some point to wind up stepping away from full-time work. But I feel that as a family, it's helped us, when you were younger, you used to complain that I was never home because I was traveling a lot with work. And, your dad got to share all the experiences with you going to your games and going to other activities, and I did not. So um, it helped me to focus on my family more and spend more time with you guys. And so I don't know that that would have happened had the illness not come or be diagnosed at that time. So, although I was angry at some points and sometimes I miss, not bringing in that extra income or the interaction I used to have with my coworkers, I would definitely say that our family has benefited from me being home, being able to work with you, being able to spend a little more time with dad and doing some other things and help pick up the slack in other areas. While I can't do it financially anymore, I'm still able to do it in other ways. And so I'm just thankful. I believe in God, and so I feel that, He authorized this and He knew what was best for me. And though I have discomfort, quite a bit, and like you said, I struggle in silence. I'm still thankful for my ability to push through and just not realizing I was even as strong as I was to push through certain things. Now, granted, there are a lot of things I still can't do with you guys, and sometimes I get tired really quickly, and to others, it just looks like I'm giving up. Particularly if they don't know that I have an illness, but um, I do what I can, and I'm thankful for the extra time that I have with you and your dad.
And so, what is some advice that you would give to others if you could speak to someone who received an MS diagnosis today? What would you tell them?
Definitely do as much research as you can to understand the disease, understand if it is genetic. So if other people in your family have it, what what your prognosis is, and do a little bit of research. And particularly for African Americans, I would recommend participating in studies. Um, there are not as many studies for African Americans in most illnesses. And so the treatments, the medications are oftentimes different for African Americans versus other races. And if African Americans don't participate in studies, then that research will never be done. And, I'm hoping at some point the disease will be eliminated and not just managing the disease. And I think that can be done through more research. So definitely doing the research.
And that was actually going to be the thing that I was going to ask you, and I hope this doesn't like um hit like a hard spot for you, but knowing that, and most people don't realize this, like you mentioned, MS, there's no cure for MS right now. There's
No.
only medications that can slow the progression of the disease.
Mhm.
And I mean, for you, how does that make you feel?
So another thing I'm thankful for, again, I started having the symptoms at age 16. So 40 years ago, I'll be 56 this year. Um, if I would have found out at that time that I had MS, I think I would have given up. Back then, there were no um, treatments, well, not no treatments, the treatments were not as good. And so people, when you said MS, you assumed of the folks that a lot of celebrities that were in wheelchairs or became crippled, and that would have been my thinking. So at age 16, to know that I have a degenerative disease that could not be cured, and right now they didn't have many medicines to help even make the disease a little more stable. I definitely think I would have given up. So the timing was right that I didn't find out until my early 30s. But it is disheartening, to know that you literally have lesions on your brain. So it's white matter that covers the brain, and whatever area it covers, that's what it affects. So if it covers a part that affects my speech, or regulates my speech. If the lesion is there, then I'm not able to speak. If the lesion is on a part that controls my left arm, then my left arm won't work for me. And so, just to see the the labs and to see, all the white matter on my brain and understand that, it's permanent right now. It's, no true way to remove it. It stings a little, I will admit, but again, thankful for the path my life has gone down. So.
And is there anything else you would want to add that I didn't ask you about, or anything that I maybe forgot to like ask you about or mention? Or is there
Um,
any other message you want people to know?
just to do all that you can to fight. Once you get the diagnosis, um, do things early on, like they offer water aerobics, which is helpful because most folks with MS have difficulties with heat. And so being able to work out in the pool where it's cool, it's a calming environment. Plus you're able to do more activities without getting fatigued. But just listen to what your doctor says and do it. Don't fight it. Don't go into a depression, but speak with other people, join National Multiple Sclerosis Society, find a chapter in your local area, and then you can meet with other people that have some of the same concerns. And also, if you're diagnosed with it, speak to your spouse and speak to your children, because they suffer as well, and try to find support groups for them too. So.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been good conversation.